I don't think that I ever had any encounter or any reason to even think about bats growing up. Nature's always been there somewhere in my childhood. One of my memories growing up is of me just thinking about forests. If you meet Ben in the field, he's kind of one of the best people to be in the field with. Bats are heavily understudied in Nigeria. Poorly known, poorly studied. We're starting to grow that interest now. I mean, because of some of the successes we've had, Ben and I, it seems like we've signaled to people, hey, bats are cool creatures, I really believe that if we were to conduct a lot more studies in the field, we're really going to start to understand how our bats are doing in the wild. My research focuses on why bats differ across the landscape. If you're at the top of the mountain and at the base, different bat species. Why? I was always fascinated by just, being able to climb up mountains. It felt like its own kind of vacation, even though bat research can never be considered a vacation. Afi Mountain itself is actually perhaps one of the steepest mountains kind of in the area. And that makes it really difficult to climb. This is not a walk in the park.
I can walk. Oh yeah. All right. Move on.
What's really striking about these areas is the landscape is always spectacular. It's lots of just terrific views of, sometimes it's the cloud floating over the mountain or floating on the side of it, and it's like really just visually stimulating. It feels like the mountain wants to reward you. Caves are valuable as shelters for bats, where they will also find mates and also raise their young. Bats are shy. They are shy creatures. A good number of species would not want to be around humans or even other species.
So we're trying to survey these caves and know the type of bats that are in this cave.
So this is an ultrasound bat detector. What it does is it listens to the sounds that bats make and it detects it. So it's ultrasound because bats echolocate at a very high frequency, so human beings can't hear bats.
It's more efficient to navigate with ultrasound echolocation. So that's what this detector is able to pick up. When they fly, they emit sound, and the reflection of that sound, they analyze it and are able to know what object is in front of them, the kind of object. And this is how they forage, this is how they feed, catch insects at mid-flight. It's a very, very efficient system.
Now, bats roosting in caves are often threatened by lots of things. When my field team and I first discovered a really rare species, the short-tailed bat, that had not been seen in the wild for 45 years, it was suddenly, we've got this huge responsibility now that we have to take on board. You encounter a rare species, you've got to save it, you've got that responsibility to protect it. The biggest turning point in my career was being told that there was a field course. It was just the big shift I needed in my career, because that's where I fell in love with bats. Myself and a friend, the first time we went to the field, it was quite disastrous. We really did not get along. At the end of that field trip, he simply just told me, look, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, you can't abandon me in the middle of a project. So next time he calls me up and says, there's this guy, he's a friend. And then he basically just introduced us.
I was very, very sure. And we work perfectly together. We were best of friends, actually, before we started dating. The bad couple? If anything, it's cool for me. It's just another way of advertising the bats and making bats look more cool. People could find love with bats. And that gives me some kind of fulfillment. And of course, we are a very cool couple, so it's like a free advert for the bats.
What we now know is that the bat is threatened by two primary human-induced threats, one of which is wildfires. And of course, under climate change, fires have become even more intense and more frequent. The second threat to this tiny bat species that hadn't been seen in the last 45 years is cave disturbance.
The perception about bats in Nigeria and the rest of Africa is a bit complex, because in one breath, most people think bats are evil and witches. In another breath, they eat them. Where we are right now, bats are hunted in their thousands, sometimes up to 4,000 individuals in one single cave. In this community, for example, they hunt bats because they like it. It's the meat. So you then have to provide things like alternative livelihood that can bring money to the community and also offer them alternative. Bat studies and conservation is very challenging because, of course, bats are nocturnal. So because of that, you have to most times walk all night. So it's a very exciting but challenging kind of research to do.
you're literally working day and night. At night, you trap bats, you process them, you identify them, what species they are, take lots of measurements, the length of the forearm, length of the legs, size of the head, I take photos and record the echolocation sound calls that they make. So it can be quite involving. So all of this you do at night because that's when bats are active, right? They're nocturnal.
There are times you want to give up. You tend to think, are we just here, like somebody said, documenting the end? Because when we got into bat research and bat conservation, we couldn't find people to look up to in Nigeria and West Africa. It was very difficult getting materials and getting mentored. So this is what we want the next generation of enthusiastic bat researchers to avoid, not to go through. We want to be remembered as the couple who are raising West African students and bat conservationists.